France has fined 2 British fishing boats in a move that has escalated an already heated dispute over post-Brexit fishing rights. One of the vessels was stopped and detained in the port of Le Havre in the early hours of Thursday morning. The other was given a warning. The number of licences being issued to French fishermen since the UK left the EU in January is at the heart of the row. France says restrictions are contrary to what was agreed. London called the move disappointing and disproportionate, but France's European Affairs Minister says it'll be adopting a zero-tolerance attitude towards UK fishing boats.
It is time that we are respected. I take responsibility for having made threats and maintained dialogue because it has enabled our fishermen to have a bit more than 50% of licences today. But it's totally insufficient and totally unacceptable. So now we must talk the language of force. And unfortunately, I fear that is the only thing this British government understands.
We'll be getting reaction from Brussels on this escalating row in a few minutes with Shona Murray. But first, let's head over to London to speak to our reporter there, Tig Enright. Tig, great to see you. The UK government calls this move by France disappointing and disproportionate, but London isn't backing down either, is it?
No, that's right, Paul, and I think this row is probably going to get worse before there's any sense of it getting better. London says it's watching events closely, seeking talks to resolve the dispute, it says, and warning, though, of a possible appropriate and calibrated response, to use the official language. Also saying, though, that London won't get drawn into a retaliatory tit-for-tat, even, of course, if France thinks that the UK picked this fight in the first place. Now, from the UK government's perspective, they say that the detained boat did have a licence, or had a licence, the past tense being the operative one there. They say they don't know why that licence was withdrawn. And certainly the boat's owner says they believe that it was acting legally and that it is their belief that it's caught up in this post-Brexit fishing dispute. We know that France is not happy with how London is interpreting the Brexit deal in terms of how many licences to fish in UK and in Jersey waters it gives to French fishermen. And when I say things are likely to get worse before they get better, Paris has set a deadline of next week to resolve this row, and there is the prospect that British boats could be blocked from unloading their catches in French ports if that deadline is not met or there's no other resolution. Paul?
OK, let's bring in our correspondent from Brussels, Shona Murray. The EU says it's monitoring what's going on and wants to try to resolve this dispute as soon as possible. But is Brussels ready to step in?
Well, behind the scenes, Brussels is already trying to deal with the French side and the British side in relation to these licences. In fact, they have been doing so for several months. It was with the Commission that the French government and the fishermen and women actually wrote their proposals to have their licences renewed. So it's sort of news to the Commission that those licence renewal forms didn't meet the standards, because as they're concerned, as far as the trade and cooperation agreement between the EU and the UK, the applications do meet the standards and the methodology. So there's questions there from the Commission perspective, but certainly they are working to try to resolve the issue, because nobody wants it to get to another point on the 2nd of November where you see France initiating retaliatory measures, and that was something that people will be trying to avoid, but it doesn't look like it's really happening at this point, Paul.
And Tig, UK-France relations very strained right now. Is there any chance of a possible reset?
Not on the horizon, I would say. It doesn't suit either side's interest to be particularly friendly to the other right now. Fishing, obviously, is a historical political flashpoint for both sides, even if here in the UK, certainly, it's highly insignificant from an economic perspective. The famous London department store of Harrods contributes more to the UK economy than the entire UK fishing industry. And for now, Boris Johnson's electoral base certainly revels in antagonism with its Britain's closest and most significant neighbour, France. We've seen that exercised in recent weeks and months as well over the row over preventing migrants from getting into small boats and crossing the English Channel. And certainly on that other side of the Channel, from the French perspective, with an election on the horizon there in France, there's little incentive, I would say, for President Macron to be anything other than difficult or difficult, as it were, when it comes to dealing with the UK after its decision to defect from the European project.
And finally, Shona, David Frost and Maroš Šefčovič will resume talks over the Northern Ireland Protocol tomorrow. Will this fishing row spill over into that meeting?
Oh, undoubtedly it will. Maroš Šefčovič's office, alongside Commissioner Sinkevicius, who is the Commissioner for the Ocean and Fisheries, they've been trying to resolve this issue for several months now. So undoubtedly it's an opportunity for Maroš Šefčovič and David Frost to have a conversation about resolving it. But you know, their main reason for having that meeting tomorrow is to resolve the issue of the Northern Ireland Protocol. Speaking to sources, they say the talks aren't going so well. To quote one source, they said that the UK keeps asking for the impossible. We know that that is for the European Court of Justice oversight to be taken out of the Northern Ireland Protocol. We'll see what happens. And we always go to these high points when it comes to the Brexit negotiations. But certainly that meeting tomorrow with Maroš Šefčovič and David Frost is crucial.